Using this simple approach has really helped me to engage more with landscapes, especially when it seems relatively uninspiring and there's maybe very few features that really stand out as an exciting or interesting view. Have you ever found yourself trying to do a painting or a drawing of a landscape, but somehow you couldn't really fix on a good composition or a clear focal point? Maybe there was too much to choose from and it felt difficult to do it justice, or alternatively, maybe it appears to be quite an uninspiring landscape. I want to share with you an approach that I've been using for the last few years when I've been working on landscapes as a preparation for doing a painting or a bigger drawing. I'm going to take you through a series of three slightly different approaches and different types of marks to make a series of very quick analytical thumbnail sketches. To prepare for this, get a sketchbook or a sketch pad and draw on it a series of little boxes to draw the thumbnails into. You can do them freehand, or you could use a viewfinder to help you if you want. After you've done that, then spend a few minutes simply looking at the landscape without trying to find anything in particular. This is a good time to allow your mind to settle, to open out a bit, to notice not just what you see, but also what your other senses are telling you, and the general impression or the general feel of the place that you're getting. Now down to the sketches. In the first approach, what you're going to do is use a continuous scribbling line. You can use pen or pencil, it doesn't really matter, but ideally something which allows you to use a bit of expressive pressure or a bit of shading. You're going to use this continuous scribbling line to try to capture something of the sense of presence of different elements in the landscape. Now, this may sound a bit of a weird one, but it's worth persevering with this just to see what emerges when you experiment with this. What do I mean by sense of presence? Well, I'm thinking of what grabs your attention first of all, what seems to dominate the view. And an important point with these sketches is that you're not trying to do a representational sketch, a miniature version of the finished piece of work or the finished view. This is much more about capturing your impressions. You could think of this one as sort of building up a kind of heat map of what grabs your attention first. Since I first published this video, I've had some useful feedback in the comments asking for a bit more clarity in how my thumbnails relate to the view that I was looking at. So towards the end, I've inserted a section where I show you a still of the same view and a more detailed reconstruction of how I went about drawing those thumbnails. That should give you a clearer illustration of how I'm going about this. And you may want to have a go yourself, working from that same still, and see how your interpretations differ from mine. There's no right answer. It's art after all, and it's very much about your own subjective experience. Now let's get back to the video. For all of these sketches, I suggest you do maybe 3 or 4 of them. And perhaps the last one, you might want to be a bit more free and experimental, and maybe just focus right down on what seems to be the key element for you. What's the strongest sense of presence for you in the landscape in front of you? In the second approach, you're going to use just curving lines. And what you're trying to capture here is the sense of movement in the landscape. Once again, this is not about trying to represent the visual facts of the elements that you're looking at, but instead you're trying to work towards getting more of that feeling of movement beyond the literal elements. So for example, if there are things like roads or rivers, paths, or very linear objects, for example, it's not just about those things, although that may be your starting point, but try to follow more of what your other senses are telling you, what the general underlying feel of what you're looking at is telling you. Once again, this may need some perseverance to get beyond just the literal elements. And it's fine for each of the thumbnails to be different. In fact, I'd encourage that, because trying to take a different approach each time can be very helpful in really opening up some of the possibilities that you've got. It's important to remember, I think, that these sketches are for your exploration. It's to help you explore beyond the superficial impressions. You don't have to justify or explain these to anybody else, especially not the inner critic in your own mind. It might be useful just to think about if I had to choose just one single line to summarize the overall sense of direction or movement in what I'm looking at, in what's going to be the final work, what would it be? And just draw a single line to indicate that. By the way, if you're finding any value in this so far, then it'd be great if you give it a thumbs up, because that really helps to boost the video. The third approach is to use just 7 straight lines. You can just draw them freehand. What you're aiming for here is to try to uncover the bare bones of what you're looking at. What's the underlying structure of the landscape that you see around you? This is probably my own personal favorite method, and it's the one that I tend to use the most. Feel free to experiment between each of the sketches that you do, and that's why it's good to do as many as you feel necessary. When you've finished going through all of these, and you've got a full set of exploratory thumbnail sketches in front of you, have a look through them and just select which is the one from each of these approaches that just seems to be the best fit for you. Now you can take these and use them as a reference point for what you build up on your final canvas, or however you're going to depict this. I like to lay out these lines on my canvas to give me a basic framework or a structure, a sort of skeleton to build the painting onto. I'm often tempted when I painted them just to leave the painting at that point, and I haven't fully committed yet to trying this one out, but it's something which I intend to do fairly soon. If that's something you'd be interested in seeing and seeing the process behind, then let me know in the comments what you think. At this point, I want to just give credit to the person who actually inspired me with this method, because I did not invent this. I got these ideas from a workshop that I attended quite a long time ago now in the Arts Centre in Aberystwyth in mid-Wales. The artist who was running the workshop, I believe, was called Howard Coles, and if I can find any more details, I'll put a link in the description to his website. During that workshop, we actually covered more approaches with different themes. Again, if you'd be interested in seeing a more in-depth video on that, then let me know in the comments. Using this simple approach has really helped me to engage more with landscapes, especially when it seems relatively uninspiring, when there's maybe very few features that really stand out as an exciting or interesting view. And as I've said earlier, I found it very useful in working from photos. Another tip I found when I'm using reference photos is to try to bring out a few other things, other notes, or maybe some other objects that help to stimulate the memory of being in that place. Above all, for me, this approach helps me to find what you might describe as the verbs behind the nouns of the landscape. If you try some of the approaches in this, please let me know how you get on in the comments below. I'd be very interested to hear how it works for you. And if you've got any questions, put them there too. If you are, or you know somebody who's really struggling to get started, to get over that initial barrier of beginning the creative process, then watch this video next. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for watching.